This isn't just another Hollywood scandal. We're talking about lawsuits, disturbing accusations, racial undertones, and behavior so bizarre it will make you question how the side of Blake Lively has stayed hidden for so long. Imagine accusing a Black producer of making inappropriate eye contact during a work meeting. Imagine holding your fairy tale wedding on a plantation. Yes, a literal slavery plantation. Imagine joking about cosplaying as a Black girl just to stalk boys as a teenager. It sounds insane, right? But this isn't fiction. This is Blake Lively's real-life list of unhinged moments, and it doesn't stop there. From cruel digs at co-stars and awkward interviews so brutal they nearly made a journalist quit, to manipulative legal tactics during wildfires, Blake's history is full of moments that feel too shocking to be true. But they are true. The deeper you dig, the messier it gets, and once you see it all laid out, the America's sweetheart image starts to fall apart. By the end of this video, you won't just be surprised. You'll be asking yourself how Blake Lively's perfect reputation managed to survive this long. Let's kick things off with what might be Blake's most bizarre and genuinely unsettling moment. A lawsuit that didn't just spark outrage, but exposed a side of Blake's behavior that left fans and insiders stunned. At the heart of this drama is Jamie Heath, a respected producer, CEO of Wayfarer Studios, and close friend of actor and director Justin Baldoni. Here's where things start getting uncomfortable. During a film shoot, Blake invited Jamie and a few other top executives to meet in her trailer. In Hollywood, this is totally normal. Meetings like this happen all the time during production. But what wasn't normal was what Jamie walked into. Blake was having makeup wiped off her collarbone while breastfeeding. Now, breastfeeding on set isn't inherently problematic. This isn't about the act itself. It's about the awkwardness of the situation. Imagine walking into a professional meeting and seeing that. Caught off guard, Jamie did what most people would consider the polite and respectful thing. He offered to come back later, but Blake insisted that they continue with the meeting as planned. That should have been the end of it. Just an uncomfortable, awkward encounter, but it wasn't. 2 weeks later, Blake confronted Jamie with an accusation that blindsided him. She claimed he had made inappropriate eye contact with her during that meeting. Eye contact. That was the accusation. Jaime immediately apologized, insisting that he hadn't even realized it had happened. But Blake didn't let it go. Instead, she implied something far more sinister, that there was something inappropriate, even threatening, about the way he looked at her. Here's where things take an even darker turn. Jaime is Black, and historically, during slavery in America, Black men were punished, sometimes killed, for simply making eye contact with white women. Blake's accusation didn't just seem bizarre. It carried deep, disturbing racial undertones that left people shocked. It echoed a long and violent history of injustice, and dragging that context into a modern workplace setting. That's something people didn't just find uncomfortable, they found it dangerous. The backlash was swift. Fans and commentators couldn't believe how casually Blake had thrown out such a loaded accusation. It raised serious questions about her judgment, and whether this wasn't just a one-off moment but part of a larger, unsettling pattern. As if the lawsuit scandal wasn't enough, Blake's personal life soon revealed another shocking misstep, one that's been quietly haunting her image for years. Her wedding. A wedding is supposed to be one of the happiest days of your life. A celebration of love, commitment, and a bright future. But Blake's perfect wedding venue? That choice turned into one of the biggest PR disasters of her career. Blake and her husband decided to tie the knot at a former slavery plantation. Yes, you heard that right. A literal plantation, land that was once home to some of the most horrific human suffering in history. A place where enslaved people were tortured, beaten, and treated as property. And for Blake, it was simply the perfect aesthetic. At first, it seemed like the couple didn't realize the gravity of their decision. They claimed they were drawn to the venue for its beauty, history, and romantic atmosphere. But that's exactly the problem. Because that history isn't romantic. It's horrifying. Critics were quick to point out how tone-deaf it was for two privileged celebrities to celebrate their love on land soaked in such brutal history. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Coming off the back of her accusation against Jamie Heath, a Black producer, the optics of Blake celebrating her wedding on a former plantation didn't just seem careless. They seemed like part of a pattern. A pattern that paints a far uglier picture than the one Hollywood wants you to see. You'd think by now things couldn't possibly get any worse. But trust me, they can. In one of the most shocking confessions to ever come out of Blake Lively's mouth, she admitted to something that left fans completely stunned. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't speculation. It came straight from Blake herself. In an old interview, she shared a story from her teenage years that she clearly thought was funny. But instead of laughter, the confession exposed something far more disturbing. As a teenager, Blake and her best friend decided to stalk boys they had crushes on at arcade. Already weird, but it gets worse. To avoid being recognized, Blake decided the best way to go unnoticed was to cover herself in bronzer and wear a scary spice wig, essentially trying to pass as a black girl. You heard that right. She literally admitted to racially cosplaying as a black girl so she could stalk boys without being noticed. At the time, Blake seemed to think this was just an innocent teenage prank. But when the clip resurfaced, the reaction was immediate, and it was furious. Fans couldn't believe how casually she had admitted to something so blatantly offensive. What she saw as harmless fun was, in reality, a shocking example of racial insensitivity, disguised as teenage fun.
10th grade, we had like crazy crushes. We would drive around, like stalk these guys. We decided one night to go to the arcade where they were, and I put bronzer all over myself in a scary spice fro, so I thought they would think I was like a black girl. And so
if you thought all of Blake's drama started later in her career, think again. Even during her time on Gossip Girl.
Your wardrobe.
That is important. Very good.
It's very important.
This is wardrobe.
This is wardrobe. This was on the return rack. I think it was hers. So I had to go and like slip them cash to wear it today.
Cracks in her perfect image were already starting to show. And the target of her off-screen shade? Her co-star Leighton Meester. During a press tour for the show, Blake made a comment that left fans and co-stars uncomfortable. She joked about working with monkeys.
Another promise was no pet monkey. Yeah. Chuck has a matching pet monkey with coordinating outfits, and I was like, I would love to be part of the show, but I can't act with a monkey. And then I got a few of them. Come on, it was a joke. Lord have mercy.
But what made this even more shocking was where she directed that comment, right toward Leighton. And here's the thing, Leighton's past isn't exactly a secret. She was born while her mother was serving time in prison, something that's been public knowledge for years. For Blake to even hint at something so personal during a public event, that wasn't just unprofessional, it was cruel. But Blake didn't stop there. Later, during the same press tour, she took another jab at Leighton, saying blondes are nicer anyway.
I think I'm just brunette because of the books.
And everyone knows blondes are nicer anyway. A moment by me.
Now, considering Leighton had to dye her naturally blonde hair brunette for her role as Blair Waldorf, the comment didn't feel random. It felt pointed, calculated, and petty. Fans picked up on the tension immediately, and rumors of a feud between the two stars quickly began to swirl. Fast forward to one of Blake's most bizarre power moves yet.
Any ideas?
Her infamous Game of Thrones reference during her lawsuit battle with Justin Baldoni. In the middle of the legal drama, Blake sent a text comparing herself to Daenerys Targaryen. She claimed she had her own dragons, specifically her husband Ryan Reynolds and best friend Taylor Swift, ready to spit fire at anyone who crossed her. At first glance, it might seem playful, but dig a little deeper and it starts to feel unsettling. Was this Blake's way of flexing her power? Reminding everyone just how much influence she had behind the scenes. And here's the ironic twist. If you watched Game of Thrones, you'll remember how Daenerys' story ended. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. If you thought Blake's behavior couldn't get any more uncomfortable, think again. Because this next moment doesn't just reveal awkwardness. It shows a level of dismissiveness and coldness that left someone questioning their entire career. In 2016, while promoting her film Cafe Society, Blake and her co-star Parker Posey sat down for what was supposed to be a standard promotional interview with journalist Kirsty Flaw. A routine interview, friendly questions, nothing out of the ordinary, until Blake made sure that's not how it played out. The interview began with what should have been a harmless, friendly comment from Kirsty. Congrats on your little bump, referring to Blake's pregnancy at the time. It was meant to be warm and lighthearted, an easy icebreaker. Blake's response? A cold, biting, and sarcastic echo. Congrats on your little bump.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
What about my bump? And these
You could feel the tension immediately. The room went cold, but instead of letting the awkwardness fade, Blake doubled down. When Kirsty moved on and asked about the film's glamorous 1930s costumes, an obvious topic for a movie set in that era, Blake brushed off the question entirely, implying it was shallow and sexist to focus on fashion. But what followed took the situation from awkward to outright disrespectful. Blake and Parker Posey began having a private conversation, right in the middle of the interview, completely ignoring the journalist. For a full minute, they acted as if Kirsty wasn't even there, chatting among themselves like they were backstage at a private event.
Do you guys love wearing those kind of clothes that you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And working in
Everyone
digital.
wants to talk about the clothes, but I wonder if they would ask the men about the clothes.
I would.
The tension was unbearable. You could see the discomfort on Kirsty's face, the humiliation, the sense that she wasn't just being dismissed, she was being mocked. And it didn't just end there. After the interview, Kirsty admitted that the encounter was so demoralizing it made her question whether she even wanted to continue her career in journalism. Imagine that, an interview so uncomfortable it made someone want to quit their job altogether. And while Blake brushed it off like it was nothing, the scars left behind from that interaction were very real.
Unfortunately, Blake's history of uncomfortable moments didn't stop there. It's not an isolated incident. There's a clear pattern of offhand comments, strange humor, and moments where she just seems completely disconnected from the impact of her words. Take, for instance, the time she joked about losing her mom. In an interview, Blake casually dropped the comment that she had lost her mom.
So sorry that we're late. I'm late because I lost my mom. She's supposed to be in Boston and she's in Barcelona. I would say understandable mistake, but not understandable. Unclear how my mother's in Boston. So if anybody watching is in Barcelona and can return my mom to me, the good news is she also lost her phone.
But before anyone could react with genuine concern, she clarified that her mom wasn't actually missing. She was just in a different city. Now, was it an attempt at humor? Sure, but the problem wasn't the joke itself. It was how flat and insensitive it came across. The audience wasn't laughing. Instead, they were left awkwardly trying to figure out whether to be concerned or confused. And then there's her role in It Ends With Us, a film adaptation based on a best-selling novel that deals with incredibly sensitive themes, including domestic violence. You'd think that, as a professional actress, Blake would have taken the time to understand the material. You'd expect her to dive deep into the story, research the topic, and approach the role with the seriousness it deserved. But that didn't happen. Blake openly admitted that she didn't bother reading the book before taking on the role. Let that sink in. A story centered around trauma and abuse, and she couldn't be bothered to even skim the source material. For fans of the book and survivors of domestic violence, this wasn't just disappointing. It felt like a slap in the face. And just when you think Blake's legal drama couldn't get any more cold, it does. Blake's ongoing lawsuit with Justin Baldoni took a shocking turn when she served him legal papers during one of the most vulnerable moments of his life. Imagine this. You're evacuating your home because of raging wildfires tearing through your neighborhood. Your family is scrambling to pack up belongings, save pets, and escape the flames. It's a moment of pure survival. And then, at that exact moment, you get served legal papers. That's exactly what happened to Justin Baldoni. Blake's team sent servers to track him down during an evacuation, hitting him with lawsuit papers while his home and loved ones were at risk. It's cold, ruthless, calculated, but somehow it doesn't stop there. In the midst of this legal chaos, Blake reportedly made a cruel comment about Justin's appearance, specifically suggesting he should get a nose job. Even worse, that comment wasn't hearsay. It was caught on camera, but strangely, it was left out of the official lawsuit documentation. It's almost as if she knew how bad it looked and wanted to erase that part from the official record. This wasn't just a legal battle, it became deeply personal. A display of power and pettiness that seemed to reveal a much darker side of Blake Lively's character. By now, it's clear these aren't just isolated incidents. This isn't about one bad interview or a thoughtless joke that got taken the wrong way. This is about a pattern of offensive comments, bizarre behavior, and moments where Blake's seemingly flawless public persona completely falls apart. It's about racial insensitivity that keeps resurfacing. Whether it's accusing a Black producer of inappropriate eye contact, holding a wedding on a former plantation, or casually admitting to cosplaying as a Black girl for fun. It's about cruelty disguised as humor, making backhanded comments about co-stars, throwing shade at journalists, and belittling others under the veil of sarcasm. And perhaps most disturbing of all, it's about cold, calculated moves that go beyond awkwardness and venture into something far more ruthless, like serving lawsuit papers during a wildfire evacuation. For years, Blake Lively has managed to maintain an image of effortless beauty, grace, and charm. The Hollywood sweetheart, the glamorous wife, the relatable, down-to-earth girl next door who can do no wrong. But now, the cracks are starting to show. When you lay all these moments out side by side, the picture starts to look very different. This isn't just about bad press or one-off mistakes. This is about a long, uncomfortable history of missteps, insensitivity, and outright cruelty. And the more you dig, the harder it becomes to ignore. So the question isn't if Blake Lively's carefully crafted image will finally crumble. It's when. Because when the spotlight finally shines on all these hidden moments, it might just reveal a version of Blake Lively that the world isn't ready for.